Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, subscribers and all viewers of my channel. What is ISO 14001 version 2015? It is an international standard for environmental management system. What is environmental management system? It is managing environmental aspects by fulfilling compliance obligation and addressing risk and opportunities. What is environmental aspect? Anything that interacts and can interact with the environment. How we define them? How do we find these environmental aspects? How to identify them? There you are. Input, output analysis of each and every process that we have. We can identify environmental aspects in that manner. So, my fellow before we go on, my fellow Muslim brothers and sisters, please do not watch this video if you're already in a mosque for the Friday prayers or for any lessons and sessions with scholars. Thank you very much. I love you for that. I wish you blessing with Jannatul Naim. And we're going to look at one process to do this input-output analysis. So for this illustration, I've got an example, which is a process called flaring. I bet you have seen it before. Oil and gas, petrochemical industries, downstream especially, you have all this. Now, this video, I'm going to show you this process input-output analysis as an exclusive presentation. I will show you immediately after this where does this input-output analysis is in the steps for the establishment of our environmental management system. Which step does it take? Which part of the implementation chronology is it situated? And then we'll look into the input-output analysis of this flaring, and then I'll show you my favorite, the dashboard, where we display the dashboard for our environmental management system. Okay, let's take a look. Where does this input-output analysis is in this entire implementation scheme, literally, for the environmental management system ISO 14001. So these are all this is just a summary of the steps that one would have got to go about in implementing ISO 14001. As far as the input-output analysis is concerned, it is over here, right at the beginning in the implementation of ISO 14001. It has got to be one of the first steps. In my days, I call this the initial environmental review. We audit by virtue of input-output analysis of all processes for all departments in our organization, which is within the scope of the ISO 14001 certification. So everything is there. And once we have a list of them, and that identification process is by using input-output analysis, so that is where we are. And then we evaluate them. Why? Because we have to determine which environmental aspect is significant. Some environmental aspects are not that significant or not that urgent or doesn't cause severe environmental impact for that matter. And on top of that, according to this EMS ISO 14001 version 2015, we have got to identify risk and opportunity associated to those environmental aspects and their respective origin of processes. Once the aspect has been identified, what we do is we will summarize them or list them down, in what is called aspects impact register. This is the popular name, all right? And this register has got all the evaluations criteria with it, and I call it the dashboard. We'll take a look at the end of this video. And once we have already this dashboard, literally. We know now our company is having an obligation for what type of environmental aspect, and for each aspect what type, what kind of environmental impact. So we know our situation, and we know where our company is in terms of compliance to the environmental management system. And with that, along with the context of our company, we will start to formulate environmental policy. And from the policy, after that, only then from these aspects impact register, we determine what we want to achieve, what is our intended outcome, and how to get it. And specifically, we start to formulate our environmental management program. These objectives and environmental management program forms or constitute what the ISO now call intended outcome. And apart from objectives, environmental management program, the intended outcome could be displayed in the objectives itself, in the EMP itself. What? Some serious intent to enhance our environmental performance. And it has got to reflect, it has got to consist of efforts, measures for compliance obligation, and it must go into what? Achieving what the environmental objectives are. Therefore, objectives and EMP here is really related, because EMP is executing the objective. Who, do what, when, and how much. It could include finance, it could include man hour, has got to be detailed out to ensure the achievement or arrival at the intended outcome, and top management is accountable for this to ensure about it. All right, now let's go back to environmental aspects. Let us see how we are able to identify environmental aspects. Remember, environmental management system is about managing environmental aspects. What are environmental aspects? They are anything that interacts or can interact with the environment. Okay, and how to identify environmental aspects from our processes. Here we go. We have input, output, analysis, and these are some of the environmental aspects coming from this process. I just pick a few for the matter of, for the sake of this display and presentation. Now, what is environmental aspect? All right, one example, off-spec product. This is a petrochemical plant. When you see flare like this, usually there are some off-spec product that they've got to flare out in order to prevent from buildup of pressure in their storage vessel. So the rest, ask the experts, okay? And if you're a consultant and trainer, you have consultants and trainer, please refer to them. They will be able to explain to you not only the flare, but this entire input-output analysis. Now, off-spec product. It is an environmental aspect. Why? Because it interacts with the environment. How does it interact with the environment? Here you go. It is an input environmental aspect. Therefore, we've got to look at its downstream of its life cycle perspective. What does this off-spec product is? They are actually materials. And where does it come from? Let's take a look upstream. It comes from naphtha, probably. It comes from eventually oil and gas industry, from crude oil. Therefore, it interacts with the environment. And as we go through to its origin, how does it interact? Eventually, it is being extracted out of the environmental resource. Therefore, the final impact of this off-spec product through its life cycle perspective upstream, it was found that the more resources is being extracted to extract so-called crude oil and eventually process them in a refinery and then petrochemical plants, and that more demand for this product, more demand for the fossil fuel, therefore the final impact is resource depletion. Between the fossil fuel extracted from the bedrock until this off-spec product, there are hundreds, maybe thousands of other environmental aspects that is being involved, but we don't address them. We create a allocation based on the life cycle assessment, but we're not going to do life cycle assessment. All right, we're going to have a very simple method of identification of environmental aspect by virtue of knowing where does it come from, if it is an input environmental aspect, or what happened to it next if it is an output environmental aspect, like this, like the flare. One example, the flare is an output environmental aspect. What happened to it? That will be the impact. How does it cause an impact? It is an interaction between the flare and the atmosphere. The flare is being flared out, and what happened to it is called downstream. Looking at downstream of its life cycle perspective, what happened to it is being released in the air. It interacts with the ambient air, the atmosphere. There's an interaction. What does it cause? That interaction is actually heat convection, and eventually it causes an environmental impact called radiant heat, and of course eventually global warming, if you may like to eat. So these are all the environmental aspects, black smoke, unburned hydrocarbon, etc. Even the flare stack system is an environmental aspect itself. So coming back to ISO 14001 version 2015, what are we managing? We are managing all these environmental aspects as displayed in yellow highlight before you now. We got to manage these environmental aspects. How to manage them? We have to look at its origin. Where is it? The flaring process. So how do we manage this environmental aspect from the flaring process? Is by having specific operational procedure in that flaring process itself to ensure that we are able to minimize, if not eliminate, all the potential environmental impacts. That is how environmental management system manages environmental aspect, by having procedures, operational procedures for those processes, and thereby eliminating, if not reducing, its potential probable environmental impact. That is ISO 14001. Okay, environmental management system. Now let's take a look at the dashboard. This is what I like to share with you. This is the dashboard that I used to call it, and if you are already in my channel for some time, the style that I have. And we have got here in the dashboard activity, we have flaring right now, and we've got all the environmental aspects, but I have a limited space for this presentation, so only 3 of them, sorry. And we've got their associated environmental impact right next to it. Got it? And we have got remember the evaluation? This is where the evaluation is: aspect, impact criteria, and rating. This is what the evaluation is about. Why? Because we want to identify how significant are these aspects, therefore we got a score there. And most importantly for you and for this particular video is we incorporate, look, risk and opportunity in the dashboard, dashboard itself. So look, it's all written down, display before your top management, your management review, all this, and from here we start to formulate specific objective, okay, and what we want to do. And in this dashboard we reflect our environmental performance, and this document, this particular dashboard, just like the dashboard of your Nissan Skyline GTR or BMW S1000RR. It is dynamic. It is changing with the performance of the engine. So therefore, this particular environmental management system, this particular dashboard, changes itself when according to any changes made to our environmental management system. The changes could be induced by production rate, could be induced by change of materials, etc. You know that better than I do. So this is what I want to display before you, the dashboard, and this is the product of environmental management system before we start to develop our SOPs, our objective, our targets. Okay, so this is it, and I hope this is adequate for my explanation for you. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you YouTube, thank you subscribers, viewers, and I wish everybody in Bahasa Melayu semoga dikurniakan kesenangan, keselamatan, kesejahteraan, kebahagiaan, dan kejayaan kehidupan di dunia dan di akhirat. Until we meet in the next video, insyaAllah, I wish everybody, whoever you are, wherever you are, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.